Hello, everybody, and welcome into my latest live broadcast. It's Friday. You've made it to December the 1st, 2023. Congratulations. See? You blinked your eyes, and all of a sudden, we're here in December, just a few weeks away from the holidays, and everybody's got sales going on. It is that festive time of year where people are rude to one another and shopping at the stores. Welcome in, everybody. It is the 1st of December, 2023. And yeah, 2023 is almost behind us as we finish off 2023. I hope on a high note and start into 2024 with, some more of the same. I've got more builds, more repairs, more upgrades all scheduled next year, as well as more participation, I hope, from you guys, from the audience. So I hope if you haven't gotten involved or you were thinking of getting involved, you make 2024 your year to get involved. We love to do things with the community. And without the community, of course, I can go about showcasing my daily work as a computer technician, which was the primary focus of this channel when I started it. But now it's really about the community, and you guys make it so. So thank you for that, and we look forward to an amazing 2024. We're going to make it amazing. We're not going to hope it's amazing. We're actually going to make it amazing. That's the plan. All right. We're not going to leave it a chance. We're going to make it happen. That's all I'm saying. Thank you for the early contributions. We have already a few super chat contributions prior to the show starting. Cowboy Rowdy contributed $10 via super chat and a $50 Amazon gift card. Thank you, Cowboy Rowdy. Appreciate you very much. Dustin Fuller renews membership, now a member for 18 months. Thank you so much, Dustin, for supporting the channel. That is the best compliment ever, is seeing people with long-time memberships. Frankie B with $4.99. Also, that very generous Amazon gift card from Frankie B the other day. Thank you again for your continued support and generosity, Frankie. Ben Laird joining us from Scotland contributes £2 and says hello from Scotland. Paul O'Brien joins us from Ireland, contributes €2. And he's excited for the show to start and celebrates his 6 months of membership. That is awesome. Thank you, Paul. Planet Cryos with a $2 super chat. Right on. Thank you, Planet Cryos. Be sure and check out Planet Cryos' YouTube channel as well. He's got some great content over there. And Michael Dane Jr., now a member for 10 months. Thank you, Mike Dane Jr. Hopefully Dad's doing good back home and back to the grind. I hope. And let's see, what do we have today? If you recall, a couple of weeks ago, maybe last month, I did a review on the Minisforum Mini ITX build. This is an Intel-based, the company, I don't know why they're doing this, but it's called IRTech instead of Minisforum. So I don't know if this is a separate company that Minisforum is licensing out, or if this is a subsidy of Minisforum that they're breaking away into a different branding. I really don't know. But I can tell you I ran into a few problems with this that prevented us from finishing it. One is that there's no driver available for loading the RAID drivers. This thing has 6 M.2 slots, which we put in 6 1TB drives. And it's 2 banks of 3. And the first bank of 3 on the motherboard, the operating system sees just fine. The second bank of 3 is on an MXM card, which needs a driver. I wrote to my contact at the marketing department there at Minisforum and said, where's the driver? And the other thing is this requires a laptop-style power supply, an external power supply. And the case I bought to put this in was a standard Mini ITX case. This is advertised and sold as a Mini ITX system, but it isn't really. It's a weird mashup of, essentially, when we deal with system builds, we have 3 big major form factors. ATX, which is your full-size motherboard, micro ATX, which is just a couple inches shorter, doesn't quite have as many ports. And then, of course, there are ATX cases, micro ATX cases. And then on the very small side of things, we have what's called mini ITX. Now, here's the thing. All these motherboards all use the same power supplies. They use the same RAM. They use the same processors. All of it's the same. The only thing that's changing is the size of the board. And then, of course, the board is limited with how many bells, whistles, and features it can have based on how small it is. Sometimes a second or a third M.2 slot is behind the board because they don't have any room to put it up in the front. And, of course, you can get little mini ITX cases like we've showcased the Train PC here. We showcased the N-Case M1. These are cases that are really, really small, some of which are really long, but they're small, and they're intended to fit a full-size graphics card and even a liquid cooler. So they can get pretty crazy on the mini ITX side, and they get kind of expensive. The problem is, of course, we're using desktop components, which isn't full-size desktop components on a smaller motherboard. You know, we can't make the board any smaller than the components that are going on it. So what do if you want, say, the benefit of power consumption that the laptop CPUs and GPUs offer? Also, why are we using full-size memory modules when the laptop memory modules or SODIMMs are half the length? It wouldn't take up nearly as much circuit board room. So Minisforum said, hey, why don't we offer the same technology that's in our mini PCs, but as a mini ITX form factor? And I thought, hey, that's a great idea. Then you have the advantage of those portable low power laptop parts, such as the laptop RAM, laptop CPU, which is going to be soldered onto the board. It's not upgradable. But you also get a massive amount of efficiency from that and low power consumption. And so I thought, hey, it's a great idea. We can use, again, the laptop RAM and laptop style CPUs. But for some reason, Minisforum or IRTech, who's ever responsible, thought it'd be a good idea to go external on the power supply, which completely throws me for a case, because now instead of looking for a computer case, I'm looking for a project box. And they do exist and they're relatively cheap. It's just a hollowed out case. It's really nothing to it. But it just kind of soured me on it, between the driver and the lack of a standard power supply. And obviously, you're not going to put a graphics card on this. External power supply isn't going to draw anywhere near enough power for that to happen. And usually a mini ITX motherboard will give you a regular graphics card PCIe slot, so you can add external graphics for portable little gaming system. So given my concerns, Minisforum mentioned they have their AMD version of this, which will take a regular power supply, and it appears that it will be a standard mini ITX form factor where this one wasn't. So we'll see. We're going to find out today. I've got it still shrink wrapped. This is the BD770i. Then if we take a look here at the website, let's see if I can find it. I've got links in the video description below this video for a couple of articles that were written on this. It doesn't appear that anybody's actually got their hands on it. It looks like they're just reading press releases and looking at press photos. So I think we might be the first to actually have our hands on it, and kind of looking forward, not kind of, I am looking forward to this. Let's go to capture here. Okay, so here's the Minisforum BD770i. This is what we're reviewing today. It's an AMD Ryzen 7 7745HX. So it's going to be the laptop version of the Ryzen processor. So it is a processor that is soldered down to the circuit board as it would be on a laptop. At $399, you're getting the motherboard, the processor, the cooler, the heat sinks. It looks like we've got built-in, well, most mini ITX boards are going to have built-in Wi-Fi. RAM, are we going to be using the full-size RAM or laptop RAM? If it's a laptop CPU, I would assume we're going to be using laptop RAM. Let's just scroll down. We'll discover this together. Motherboard detail, chassis fan header, USB 3.2 connector, PCIe 5.0 by 16 slot. Okay, yeah, so you can add a graphics card to it. Let's see, CPU fan header, SSD fan header, interesting. M.2 slot, CPU power connector. Okay, I see antennas here. It's got to be for the Wi-Fi. This has got to be the vent for the cooler. Well, let's play their video. Okay, yeah, they're using DDR5 RAM, and I don't know if this audio is going out, so I'm going to mute the audio, just in case it was going out. Oh, the RAM just sits vertical like that? That's weird. Okay, so are the two M.2 sit underneath that giant heatsink right there? Okay, we can handle that. So this is going to be bare bones, meaning you have to provide your own RAM storage and operating system. One of the reasons why they can sell it for so much less is you're not paying for all that stuff. You'll have to get it on your own, and you'll likely, the people that benefit the most for this are people that are going to want the best RAM, the most amount of RAM, fastest RAM, the fastest storage, the biggest capacity storage. It'll be cheaper for you to do it yourself than the generic stuff that they include when they're trying to price these systems competitively. They don't put traditionally the high-end stuff in them because most people aren't interested in that. Only the enthusiasts for the most part. So if you're an enthusiast, and this is an enthusiast part, quite frankly, I don't think too many regular home users would take this on. Does look like we're in a traditional mini ITX case this time. Scares me they're using a screwdriver that's plugged in. That's a lot of potential power. CPU fan. Okay. With the CPU fan? I guess we're going to find out here in just a minute. Wow, look at that. A triple slot wide, full length GPU. That's impressive. Now that's assuming you're going to have a power supply powerful enough to power that GPU. See, that GPU right there is a totally different GPU. Wait a minute. What just happened to our GPU? It just got half the size. You see, this is editing, folks. Something didn't work, and they obviously had to change something. Although they're not showing it powered on anyway, so I'm not exactly sure why it would matter, why you wouldn't have just kept the original card that you showed going in. Since we didn't see it boot anyway, how would we know if it's working? That's the only reason I can imagine they switched it. That was bizarre to see that card switch like that. Anyway, that's what we're working with today. Let's get this unboxed and take a look at what's in here and what's included in what we have to buy separately. So as I mentioned, when you buy a mini ITX motherboard, a traditional mini ITX board usually has built-in Wi-Fi. That's just standard, comes with the territory. I don't think it's a written rule, but it's kind of an unwritten. And I mention that because I don't know if they're just giving us the antennas here, or are they giving us the actual Wi-Fi? And if so, which Wi-Fi are they giving us? Wi-Fi 6E? Wi-Fi 7? I don't know. Let's see. Documentation. Super teeny tiny motherboard. External antennas, that's cool. So these are, instead of screwing the antennas directly onto the back of the card or the back of the motherboard, which kind of gets in its own way of the signal, by moving the antennas away onto their own stand and running a cable, that allows you to adjust the antennas for the best signal. We have an I/O shield here, which is filled with lots of holes. Kind of a shame the I/O shield isn't built on, but that's a minor complaint, I suppose. We have some kind of a support bracket here, which I'm going to guess is for the GPU, but I don't know. I'm sure the documentation will tell us. And then we have a number of screws. Now, this is unusual that we have so many screws. Normally, you see this number of screws with a case. But I think we've got some M.2 screws here. And we've got some fan screws. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 little bags of screws. Usually with a motherboard, you'd be lucky to get one. Or they put one little M.2 screw and you get 4 bags, each containing 1 screw. All of these bags, I'm happy to report, have at least 4 or more screws in each bag. So they're all different screws, and we'll figure out what they're for here in a moment. Let me go ahead and just close this down here. See what we've got. Okay. Well, it's a good looking board. It does appear that we do not get a CPU cooling fan. So this is where I'm going to start getting kind of testy. For whatever reason, folks at Minisforum are selling these systems incomplete. So I don't know where you're supposed to get that fan. I don't know why they wouldn't have included it. That's just bizarre to me. You're obviously going to need a cooling fan up here. This is a Ryzen 7, after all. They've given us the fan for the M.2 drives. But why is there no fan for the brains of the system? You know, one of the things that really set me off with the AD650i over here was that external power supply, because Minisforum doesn't offer you the option of buying the power supply. As far as I can tell, it doesn't exist. So I don't know where you're supposed to source one. Now, granted, I can get creative and I can go on eBay and I can find a 19-volt power supply. That's not the point. Minisforum should be selling everything I need to complete the build, or they're missing opportunities. At the very least, everything I need to complete the system powering on. Now, granted, they don't need to sell me RAM and they don't need to sell me SSDs, but I mean, they're stocking that stuff anyway with their mini PCs, and this is using the same stuff. So it'd be no big deal for them to offer that, if just to offer it, right? They don't need to offer a power supply. But anything I need for the motherboard itself, like I'm curious if I've got Wi-Fi. I've got the antennas, but did they give me the Wi-Fi card? Because normally on a mini ITX build, you do get Wi-Fi. You don't have to add that separately. Is that something we have to add separately? I think it might be. I need to verify it. I'm not seeing where the Wi-Fi card would be. And they could be using either a laptop style soldered on Wi-Fi adapter, or they could be using a socketed Wi-Fi adapter. I don't know. This is looking like a desktop style CPU here. This doesn't look like a laptop style, which again sort of defeats the uniqueness of what Minisforum is offering if they're just going to use a standard desktop processor. Why even include the processor? Why not let me just pick any AM5 processor if that's what they're doing? Again, I need to take this apart and see what's underneath here, because I just can't tell. It's all pretty well covered up. And it looks like we've got 4 screws down here on the bottom. This is our CR2032 battery. On the back, we've got our audio. We've got Ethernet, 2 USB 2s. Then we've got our Wi-Fi antennas. Whether or not they're hooked up to anything, I don't know yet. We've also got USB Type-C, which I guess can be used as a video output. DisplayPort out, HDMI out, and 2 USB 3s. Mark Gaines with a 10-pound contribution says, good evening, Carey. Also, check your Amazon. Hey, Mark, thank you so much. Mark joins us from Northern Ireland. He's a frequent contributor and supporter here. Let's check the email and see what we got. Ah, yes, an Amazon gift card from Mark Gaines for $25. Thank you, Mark. And David Everett sends a $25 Amazon gift card. Says, hello, Carey. Thank you for the info on the NASs and all your great info. Right on, you guys rock. Thank you so much for supporting the channel and enabling me to go shopping on Amazon to buy more equipment that we can review here on the channel. Now, the folks over at Minisforum did send both of these to me in exchange for a review. They're not paying me for the review. I think it's important to have full disclosure so you know, if I'm being paid or if I paid for this equipment. I was hopeful that the missteps taken with this were corrected with this. But now I'm not so sure, because if we've got the desktop processor, which is what it looks like, then why are we using laptop style RAM? That's a bit of a kludge. And again, the laptop style processors are lower power, they're just more efficient, and they don't generate as much heat. So, I don't know, let's take a look at what's underneath. Killing me. So I do have a mini ITX case that I was going to build this system in. And that kind of got scuttled, or at least temporarily set aside. And then this board came in. I was like, oh, well, this is probably going to be better off anyway, because, again, I can't use this board in the mini ITX case, or I'm going to have a big gaping hole where a power supply goes. Or I can just put a fake power supply in there, like put a power supply in and not hook it up just for looks, which is like one of the dumbest things ever. So I wouldn't do that. So that just kind of scrapped that project. So now this was an opportunity to make this right. And it may be that we're hitting another stumbling block here. So we've got a bunch of this thermal tape here. What's interesting is this does appear to be a laptop style. Boy, this is really bizarre. I can't really tell. It's delidded, so, and most laptops, CPUs are delidded, have a lid necessarily. So that is not what I was expecting. Okay. I'm looking for the Wi-Fi. Okay, this does have, right here's our Wi-Fi adapter, right here. It is on the antenna. It's very unusual that they've, let me bring this up a little closer. You guys can see it better. The parts that normally lay flat, like the Wi-Fi adapter, sit upright here into the socket. Same with the RAM. The RAM is going to sit upright vertically. And then our CPU, it's awfully big for a laptop CPU, but it is soldered down. So, not normally that large. So yeah, that's the front. There's the back with our CMOS battery there. And then the 4 screws that hold that giant heatsink in place. Our rear I/O, and we've got some kind of a reset button here. And of course, you've got a PCIe Gen 5 graphics card slot there. Well, you don't have to use graphics card, but that's really what it's intended for. And we are going to use a standard power supply, thank goodness. So we've got our regular connector there. And where's our big connector? Right here. So we are going, so the power supply concern is resolved. Then there's these little plugs here that are used for holding the M.2 drives in. And there's space underneath there for 2 M.2 drives. And you'll see the blue tape on the thermal compound that's, or the thermal tape that's beneath this heatsink fan. How bizarre that we don't get the CPU fan. Like, of all the things to not include, that really would have been handy to have that. I don't know how well it'll run without it. It does have me a little concerned. However, at least we're meeting more of the true mini ITX standard. Again, I was worried that we weren't going to get the Wi-Fi adapter, but it is in fact there. So I don't know which Wi-Fi adapter that is. It's kind of covering up the model. Okay, well. And then this is the heatsink I just removed, just so you can get a good look at how they've done this. I've got some kind of weird thermal tape. That looks like tape to me. It's hard to tell if that's material or tape. And then up here, those are your VRMs. Those can get really hot. So that thermal tape's really important as well. But no fan. Bizarre. That is a bizarre and seemingly random thing to not include. And it does appear that that's the only missing piece that you would normally, well, let's face it, if you were going to buy a regular mini ITX system, you'd be responsible for providing your own CPU and your cooler. But if you were buying a Minisforum mini PC, you obviously would expect it to be ready to rock and roll, right? That you wouldn't have to buy anything for it unless you were buying the bare bones version. But even the bare bones version would simply require you to add RAM, storage, and an operating system. And I would expect this to essentially be that, with the exception that they're including the CPU, which they'd have to because it's soldered down. And there's a lot of advantages to having that on a mini ITX system. Always tighten these down in opposite corners. Anything to do with a heat spreader. You want to make sure that the heat spreader goes on evenly and that it doesn't get one side torqued down before another side and then it ends up not sitting flush. And you can't tell, other than your CPU temps will be ridiculous. Why is this just spinning? It goes. I was a little scared there for a minute. All of a sudden, these things were tight a minute ago. That is bizarre. Okay. Hopefully it's happy. Planet Cryos with a $10 super chat says, like you said in the past, you are the guinea pig of newly released and latest tech. I'm sure they'll address this, I hope, but yes, they should have thought of this simple thing like a cooling fan. It does say that like a 12 millimeter fan is required. And I was like, well, what's that for? It says fully customized cooler. I guess they're referring to the M.2, or they're referring to this cooler, but without a fan on it. Very strange. Just trying to wonder what the thought process was there. There certainly was no precedent for them to follow here. Or rather, at least without including the fan. There is a precedent to follow with including a fan. That's just very strange. I think it'll run pretty good without it, but it is a Ryzen 7. Those do get hot, so, oh no. David Bauer said it's a laptop CPU. Does it need one? Have you ever opened a laptop that didn't have a CPU cooling fan on it? I haven't. Ben Laird with a £5 contribution. Thank you, Ben, watching us from Scotland. Twin Turbo Toyota with $4.99 says, hey, Carey, I think they discontinued the $200. I can't find them online. Also, what air cooler do you recommend for 14900K? If you go to Corsair's website and you look in their catalog, in other words, you go to corsair.com and in the search type in 200R. If the 200R is still in their catalog, then they're still making it. What I can tell you. You type it into the search and nothing appears, then it's discontinued. Every time anybody's ever said it's discontinued, they were simply out of stock. So as far as I know, it's still in the catalog. Whether or not they get them in stock, that's another story. What do I recommend for an air cooler for a 14900K? I don't believe it's possible to cool a 14900K with an air cooler, at least not under any heavy load. As far as I'm concerned, if you're going to buy a 14900K, you should be using a liquid cooler with it. If you don't want to use a liquid cooler, don't buy a 14900K or a 12900K or in anything 900K. They consume a lot of power. They get very, very hot. And in fact, we have a 14900K build that I recently purchased a new all-in-one cooler from EK. And I've never used any of their all-in-one coolers before. I've always known EK as being, a place people go to buy custom open loop parts. So that can get really expensive. I'm not interested in plumbing. So when I saw EK had all-in-ones, I know they're well respected in the liquid cooling arena. I'll give them a shot. And so far, nothing I've used will cool a 14900K. I've not found a cooler yet, all-in-one or otherwise. It still overheats with every cooler I put on it when I'm running Prime 95. If you never run anything real resource intensive, you could probably get away with an air cooler. But again, it's sort of silly to me, to go to that level of CPU and then try and cool it by air. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's completely illogical. The whole point of that CPU is in order to gain the best performance possible. You've got to know if you want the best performance possible, you're going to spend a lot of money for it, and it's going to draw a lot of power. It's like you want a really fast muscle car, but you want good gas mileage. You're going to have to sacrifice one for the other. So there are other cases I use besides the 200R when I can't get the 200R. I was using the 110Q for a while. The Mesh 410 from Cougar is a nice little case, cheaply made, but it's a nice little case. And I've also been digging pretty much everything from NZXT. In particular, the H7 is a really nice case. And the, is it the H5? Another great little NZXT case. With NZXT, you're going to get the glass panel on the side. That's, I suppose, the biggest concern I have for my business clients. But as long as we don't put any RGB in it, it's all blacked out. So you can't really tell anyway. It's tinted. At least if you get the black case. The white one is not tinted. But the black case, the glass is very tinted. And so if you just black it out, just no RGB. Like the EK all-in-one cooler is a blackout cooler. It's got no RGB on it. Then people probably wouldn't notice the glass panel. but they're a pleasure to work in. Very easy, much easier to work in than the 200R. And, look, if the 200R never comes in stock again, I mean, no love lost. It's had a good run, 15, 20 years. So, time to move on. But yeah, if you go to Corsair.com and in the search type 200R, if the 200R appears in their product catalog, well, what does that tell you? All right, let's see. Doman 2000 says there are some low spec laptops and netbooks without a fan, but this isn't low spec. So I'm not quite sure what the point is you're trying to make. It's like you're arguing to be right about something that isn't right at all because it's not comparable to this. This is a Ryzen 7. Are there any laptops that you're aware of that Ryzen 7s that don't have cooling fans? Because I think that was the point that was trying to be made. Either that or somebody was saying, well, they make something entirely different in an entirely different way. Well, that's a bizarre argument to make. What has that got to do with the price of tea in China? I have no idea. Should we say that still? Or can we not say that? Let's see what else we got going on here in the chat room. I'm just trying to catch up with the comments in the chat. Daniel Emberley wants to know if anyone has any experience with ASUS motherboard RMA process. I'm debating on whether to throw it away or RMA it. I would RMA it. Just make sure, take all your little M.2 screws off because ASUS will not send them back to you. Also, when you're sending the board back, make sure you put the little plastic cover over the CPU socket. Make sure your M.2 drives, your RAM, your CPU are all removed. Put the motherboard back in an anti-static bag. It does not necessarily need to go back in the motherboard box, but it will need to be bubble wrapped. You want 2 inches of packing material covering the, all the angles, right? So the top, the bottom, the left to right, the front, the back. And then I would take it to the post office. You can even use a priority mail box. You can get these boxes for free at the post office for priority mail. And I think they should sell one big enough that should give you, if not 2 inches, pretty close to enough padding on both sides. And then that comes with free tracking information when you ship it, which is more affordable than FedEx or UPS, and it gets there faster. Now, ASUS is really good with their returns. They're just going to kick you back essentially a spare motherboard. When they have the motherboards made, they don't make them, by the way. No motherboard manufacturer makes their own boards. They contract them out to be made. And so they have some actuary that figures how many extras they have to allow for in-warranty replacements, since they really don't repair them. They just, anytime a board will come back, if they verify that it's bad, they just kick you back a brand new board, essentially, that doesn't have all the retail packaging, because that retail packaging costs extra. So the actuary figures out approximately how many return units they're expecting. Once the warranty period is expired, so you go from the serial number of the last unit, say, whatever the warranty period is, beyond that, all those units they have not sent for warranty, they often get sold as B stock. You'll often see that with like EVGA, you'll see B stock power supplies and whatnot. These are often leftover extras that will be used for warranty replacements. Nobody fixes anything anymore. It's just a swap out. So you're going to get a brand new board. So for that, I would do it. For the price of the shipping, why not? Worst case scenario is you don't need it. Didn't hurt to have it. I mean, for 20, 25 bucks is what it's going to cost you to ship it with tracking, priority mail. And what's the board worth? 150, 200 bucks? I would totally do it. And the fact that you're not in any hurry for it is even better. Nothing worse than waiting, staring at the clock, waiting for your replacement board. It takes forever. It's like watching grass grow, watching water boil. A watched pot never boils, right? So let's see. Mats Olof joining us from Sweden. Welcome into our friend Mats Olof there. And Oystein watching us all the way from Norway. There's LRCX joining us in California. Alan Lindos with $14.77 super chat. Says, hello, Carey, Marlena, and chat. Super late today. Here's my extra late fee. Thank you, Alan. Thank you for supporting the channel. Better late than never. David Graham contributes $2. He says it's going to need a fan. Yeah, it probably will need a fan. I'm not exactly sure how we're going to secure a fan onto this. There don't seem to be any mount points for screws except here on the edges, and that would be an awfully big fan. So a standard fan, I'm just not sure how that would fix down unless you're just screwing it down between the fins. That's not very secure. Not a fan of that. So yeah, if it needs a fan, it should have included it. Zvi Manor says they're saying, Minisforum says a 12 centimeter fan must be purchased separately. So they are showing it in the store though? Are they selling it? See, that's the thing. If they're telling me I need to buy something in order for the motherboard to work, then I think they're missing out on a basic opportunity to sell these add-on items. Because those are usually high profit items, and I'd like to buy everything in one click, right? I'll have it all come from one manufacturer. I don't want to have to go to this website to order this and that way. I got to go over here to get the power supply, over here to get the case. Now I got to go over here in addition to get the fan, a 12 centimeter fan. And how exactly is that 12 centimeter fan going to secure? So I am not digging this. Okay, so it appears I'm looking at the picture online. And again, I haven't opened the manual. I haven't looked at anything. But if we go to, let's go back online right here. And those brackets, these are not installed, but these appear to have the screw holes for the fans. So these have to, again, I don't know why this isn't installed from the factory. This throws me. We've got 3 screws holding down this bracket, 3 screws holding down this bracket. A 12, we don't say 12 centimeters, we'd say 120 millimeter. So that means it'll take a standard 120 millimeter fan here, which is a very common case fan size, 120 or 140. So a 120 millimeter fan is a 1.2 centimeter fan. A 140 millimeter fan is a 1.4 centimeter fan. Just for the Americans who need help with that. I know I do. Okay, so I guess we have to put these little brackets on. And I do have plenty of 120 millimeter fans laying around. That's all it takes. It's not that big of a deal. That's effectively like telling you have to add a case fan. Except It is a case fan, but it's not going on the case. I can't say I've ever seen anything like this before. It is. Look, this is either industry leading or mind-blowingly unnecessarily confusing. 120 millimeter fans are not expensive. This should all be installed from the factory. So let me go back in here and see these brackets. Yeah, there's the two brackets. This partially explains why there's so many screws, because each of these brackets needs 3 screws. And remember, when I work on things, when a customer calls me as a real working computer technician, I don't get the benefit to study what they have. A lot of times customers can't even tell me what they have. They can't even tell me what operating system they have half the time. They certainly don't know what storage they have or what RAM. That's why they're calling me. They're like, geez, dude, if I knew the answer to these questions, I'd just do the work myself. I got to sympathize with them. So I know this is aimed at hobbyists and enthusiasts. So it's a little like a Heath kit in that it's a little impractical for business use to have to go through all this labor to set this up. And some people are like, well, you make a big deal about nothing, but you have to understand scale. When we're talking about, say your employer wants 24 of these all set up and running, and you've got to do all of this, you know, essentially 48 times, that's a significant amount of investment of time just doing tedious work that could have been that way from the factory. So when you're just building one, it's not a big deal. Okay, so this little bag right here, this has 6 screws. This is the only bag that has 6. We have 4 screws here. We have 4 flathead screws here. We have 2 super tiny, I'm going to guess M.2 screws. And then we have 4 fan screws, which I've got to guess are the screws that are going to go through the fan and into these brackets right here. So if I align this, I'm going to guess. So the question is does the fan, this piece is longer than the heat sink. So does the excess hang off this side? Well, it can't, because it would hit the video card. This would interfere with the video card if you put it in this way. Here's another thing I don't like. We have 3 screws, but we have 6 holes. So which of the 6 holes do you use? So what I'm going to have to do is go back to the website and look at the picture. See exactly how this is overhanging. And why are there 6 holes? Who's that for? Is it possible that in order to make these both exactly the same so that they're reversible, that they have to put 3, I'm guessing by putting 6 holes in it, that they can cut one piece and just flip it the other way to put the, to rivet these mount points. So I guess that's why they did it. Now that I've thought it all out loud, yeah, they've made it so it's reversible. That way you don't have a left and a right. You can use either one for either side and the holes will align. And I'm going to guess that we have to go align that first hole close to this edge, because as I mentioned, it will otherwise get in the way of the graphics card. It would prevent or preclude that installation. Let's see. Let me pull up the website again, take another look. So you see how the overhang, see how this comes all the way out, which is bizarre. That kind of, there's a fan here, which they've taken the fan out of this picture. So this fan is going to stand over or be secured over this fan here. One fan above the other fan. How bizarre. And yes, the edge here is going to align with the edge of the heatsink, and then you have a good full inch of overlap here. It's a little sloppy. I don't know. It's different, and I don't know that it's different in a good way, but let me try to, who moved my cheese? Let me try to keep my mind open to the possibilities that this may be a superior way of doing things. Just have a very strong suspicion that this could have been done at the factory, and it shouldn't be something we should have to deal with regardless. That's my feeling. All right, so we have these real tiny screws. In fact, I'll bring these up to the camera and show you just how small they are. They look a lot like little M.2 screws. They're very shallow. They're not going to go in very deep. And you want to make sure you're using the right screws, because these heat sinks are often made of a very soft metal. Let me just take these out. And I'm going to need, I think, my little jeweler's screwdriver. Knocked my microphone off. Well, those screws don't turn very far. Well, I suppose one of the benefits of being the first people to have hands-on with this is stuff like this we have to figure out. I don't get to cheat and have somebody else figure it out for me. You guys do. Now that we figured it out together, we now have a better understanding of what to expect if we order this, because I wasn't expecting this, obviously. Can't say I've ever had to do this on a mini ITX build, ever. Although on a mini ITX build, I would be providing my own CPU. So there is that. Okay. Done with these for right now. I think we're going to need them here in a minute. Let me bring this up, show you. We're going to get a case fan. And the case fan is going to sit over these nubs, one here, and the other side. You see how it overlaps this fan here. See how this piece, the whole fan's going to cover essentially up to that point, which again, it just seems a little ridiculous. avoidable, redundant. Bear with me here just a second as I'm trying to get my live chat room back. There it is. There we go. So then the point is that they're bringing up in the chat room is probably should have put the M.2 drive in first, because with this bracket sitting above, this could make it difficult to get this piece out. Yes, it does appear. Maybe not. Maybe not. There's a screw here and a screw here. So let me see, which driver do I want to use? Use the JIS driver here. Take out the screw here. Is that staying captive? That's always welcome. It's not captive. They're just really long screws. All right, well, having that off would certainly make it easier, but looks like it's not a problem. It won't be a problem. And then on the other side of this, we've got our thermal tape. Oh, it's just one big piece of thermal tape instead of two pieces. I suppose that's probably easier for maintenance. So we need to put an M.2 drive in here. Now these say they're PCIe 5.0. So that's got to be one heck of a heatsink if it's going to stave off the heat of a Gen 5 M.2. It's even hard to get motherboards with Gen 5 M.2 slots. So the fact that this is giving you two of them, that's the first time I've seen two together. If what I'm reading is accurate, that's impressive. All right, let me see. I am also curious, this looks wider than 120 millimeter, but it's 120, it's 120. Let me just grab a fan I've got laying around here just to see what the fit looks like. Well, I will tell you that is nowhere near as bad as I made it out in my head. Okay, I'm the first to admit it. I was making a bigger deal out of this than it was because I didn't understand. This is why I emphasize experience over, I read a book about it or I saw a video on it. There are certain things that can only be gleaned or learned from doing it, like riding a bicycle. Nobody can explain balance. You just got to get on the bike and figure it out for yourself. Each one of us has our own way of learning that. And some of us never learn it at all. Same with swimming. You gotta get in the water and flail around a little bit and figure it out. This design is so unusual and it's taken me a bit by surprise. It wasn't what I was expecting. And I will tell you, as a business owner, if you want a successful business, then you need to have happy customers. Customers that are going to refer you, customers that are going to come back time and time again. And the best way I know to make sure I have a happy customer is to meet the customer's expectations that I set, right? So you'll notice before I make a sale with anybody, I always tell you guys everything you should be expecting. So I'm not telling you whether or not you should buy this or you should buy that. What I am telling you is if you choose to buy that, then you should know these are the limitations or these are the consequences or potential downsides, if you will. These are the upsides and the downsides. And then with that information, then you can choose what's right for you. And what's right for you may not be right for literally anybody else on the planet. So I'm not asking you to decide what's right for anybody else. And I'm not trying to tell you what's right for you. I'm trying to give you all of the information, as much as I can be aware that would be useful to making a purchasing decision. So it's about warranty, it's about the manufacturer, it's about the quality, it's about the price, it's about, features, it's about limitations, all of it. It's about inventory, right? If you can't get a Corsair 200R, it doesn't matter how much I talk it up. If you can't get one, they're not available. What are you going to do? So that's not too helpful to people. So I had expectations going into this based on the fact that it's a mini ITX and based on the fact that we did the IRTech previously, and this is basically the AMD version of that, only that this takes a standard PC power supply, which was the big deal killer for me on this one. If I wasn't clear about that yet, let me make sure I am now. I do have a Radeon Tech. Is it a Radeon Tech? Just a small ITX case that I think this is going to work great in. And then I think I can use a regular power supply in those cases. I don't have to use the small form factor power supplies. Those are few and far to choose from, and they're expensive. So my preference is to use a mini ITX case that will use a full-size ATX power supply. They're cheaper, more abundant, and that's just my personal preference. So I think by using the Radeon Tech case with a standard ATX 500 watt power supply, we could even throw a graphics card in here. I saw a couple of YouTube channels using this graphics card when they were running tests. And I really, I'm not a fan of GPUs. I prefer not to use them. I prefer to get a CPU that has onboard graphics. But every once in a while, I run into a customer that, wants to buy a GPU. And of course, I won't ship them. I've had too many break-in shipping. And I saw, it was Craig Salazar and Dawood Does Tech Stuff, have the GeForce RTX 4060. And I couldn't get over it. If you haven't seen this, this is a $300 graphics card. And it looks like Honey, I Shrunk the Graphics card. Look at how teeny tiny this is. I just want to boop its little nose. Look at how teeny tiny this is. So it's a low profile RTX 4060. I think it was on sale for $279. They're normally like $315. And obviously I haven't hooked it up or anything. I just got it. And I thought this is going to be great for testing, instead of, when you guys recall, the last GPU you saw me messing with was the RTX 3090 Founders Edition, which is just a little bit bigger. Look at this. Are you kidding? I just can't get over that. Now, I'm not expecting the world of performance out of it, but it is a 4060, so it shouldn't be too bad. I don't know how that's going to compare with modern built-in GPUs on these APUs, but I just thought it was really cute. I said, oh, look at that. So this could go here, and this could all go into the Radeon Tech, and you'd have yourself a killer little gaming machine. And it wouldn't break the bank. You could do it under $1,000 with everything: operating system, RAM, storage, graphics card, motherboard, CPU, power supply, case, all of it. I think you could have a pretty decent little gaming rig there for under $1,000. And it would be totally portable if you wanted to. Anybody still doing LAN parties? You wanted to do that sort of thing? All right, let me put this back. So yeah, that could potentially be this build. You guys think I should do that? Kind of leaning that way. I didn't buy the card with that in mind. I really bought the card to have for diagnostics. However, I just think that this tiny motherboard and the tiny case and the tiny graphics card, they all just go together. It's like a match made in heaven. Jason Willis says, you can always buy another one. Can I use your wallet? It was painful to spend $300 on a GPU. I never want to spend that kind of money on a GPU unless it's for somebody else. I don't want it. And if I am going to spend a lot of money on a GPU, I'm going to have it for as long as possible. So, all right, let's take a look here in the chat. David Graham said it's not too bad. It does 1080 gaming. Yeah, I would expect. I wouldn't expect 1440 out of it or anything like that, but it should play all the AAA titles at 1080 without a problem. Peter VZ with a €1 contribution. Thank you, Peter. Andy Kane renews membership, now a member for 4 months. He says, always glad to be a part of this amazing community. Thank you, Andy. Roy Starman contributes $10 via Super Chat. Is the little fan using the only fan plug? No, there's a CPU fan plug right here. And this fan is a completely different kind of connector. And then there are 2 more fan plugs on this side. So we have 1, 2, 3. I see 3 fan headers on this. So we're only going to use 1. That still leaves 2 for the case. So I'd say it's decked out perfectly. Not too few and not too many. And Cowboy Rowdy has been a member now for 16 months. Thank you, Cowboy Rowdy, for all of your recent support and your 16 months of membership. Mortant 1210 joins us, as does Rick Lakes and Garfield Rupe, all popping in. Say hello. Jim KJ3N mentions $365 for a 5600G computer system. Yeah, but it's not, you're going to pay extra if you want it to be micronized. And let's see. Tom K with a $2 super chat. Missed that one earlier. Says, have a good Friday. Hey, Tom, thank you. You too. Okay, and I can't go back any further than... Where are we on the time? We were just over an hour into today's broadcast. I like to keep these around 2 hours, so I suppose I need to get a move on, huh? So I just need one M.2 drive in there. I'm not going to put a Gen 5 drive in there because I don't have any. Those things are like hen's teeth, made of unobtainium, and they're super expensive. And I have spent all my money. So except for the Amazon gift cards I got today, I was back to using the credit card there at Amazon. How do you think I paid for that 4060? Thank you, credit card. All right, let's see. There's a is there a Gen 4 drive I can use that doesn't already have? Oh. Could be good. That could be good. I am concerned that SSD prices are going back up. RAM and SSD prices are going back up. And I don't know if that's temporary. But I would suggest if you've been holding off getting an SSD, but you wanted to get one, if you wait until next year, I'm afraid the prices are going to be at least $30 higher than they are right now. That's the information I have, which, you know, take it for what it's worth. Could be wrong. Let's see, that's a Samsung 980. That's only Gen 3. That's a Samsung 970. That's Gen 3. What do I have Gen 4? I have a Western Digital Black, but that has a heatsink on it, which I cannot use. I need to use an M.2 that does not have a heatsink on it. And my preference is that I find a Gen 4. I have a ton of Gen 3s. I think I'm going to stick with the S880 Beijing. I have used a ton of these drives, and so far so good. Now, granted, the machines they're being used in, I'm not using any of them daily, so they're not getting a lot of wear. So I don't know. I can't say for sure what the endurance on these drives are, but I've got a stack of empty boxes about this tall. So I don't know how many that is, 15, 16 of these. And then I still have 4. Well, after this, I'll have 3 left over. And the price on these went up too. These were $190 for the 4 terabyte Gen 4 drives. And they went up to $210, I think. And then they put them on a Black Friday special to bring them back down to the $190 again. So that's why I'm concerned. I think these prices are going back up. Aside from whatever deals they're going to have as we get closer to Christmas and I get desperate to start moving inventory, we probably will see some very aggressive pricing. And then after the first of the year, I think it all goes back the other way. Make up for their losses they took earlier. That's what I think is going to happen. Paul O'Brien contributes €2, and he says, here's for a tea bag to make Marlena a nice cup of tea. She's not here today, but I've certainly put that on the to-do list. Captain Blinsky with the $10 super chat says, hello to one and all from the rainy, foggy hills and valleys of southwestern Pennsylvania. Peter Lightcock says, Carey, you missed my super chat. What? He says, good evening, Carey and Marlena and everyone in the chat. All the best from Bonnie, Scotland, where the temperature in Edinburgh is 23 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 5 degrees Celsius, negative 5 degrees Celsius. Ooh. Thank you, Buster. I am sorry. I missed your super chat. Where is it? So the chat room only goes back so far. let me go over here and look at viewer activity. Nick Caffrey with a 20 euro, is that euro contribution? Says hello, Carey and chat. Hope everybody's enjoying this unusual build. Thank you, Nick. Thank you for supporting the channel. And let me just scroll through my contributions here. Because if I missed Buster's, I'm afraid I might have missed others as well. "3D Everything" contributed $10 in Super Chat. Says, "I'm now retired. Finally, no more get it done from bosses." Ah, and there's Peter Laycock with 10 pounds in Super Chat. Thank you, Buster. Normally Mara does this work for me. Apparently she has the day off. Let's see. I think I got everybody. All right. Yeah, I think I'm caught up there. Might as well check on the phone too while I'm at it, huh? Big Android update for me today. Holy cow. It was what they say, version 6 now of the One UI, something like that. Richard Palmentier sends an Amazon gift card of $30. Right on. Thank you, Richard. Hey, I'm well on my way to buying another 4060. That's all I need. I need that like a hole in the head, as my mother would say. And Peter Laycock, a very generous gift card, which unfortunately he obviously sent it by mistake. It's a card for Apple. Is this a cruel joke, Buster? He says, I hope you enjoy this gift card. Hello, Carey and Marlena. Enjoy this joke, your friend Buster. Yeah, I'm not going to retrieve that gift card, just so you know. An Apple gift card. $10 from Dan Nilsson via PayPal. Okay. All right, I think that catches me up with everybody. So, I was going to put this M.2 drive in. I don't think it matters if we use one slot or the other. So I tend to want to go to the inside slot, even though the outside slot, we definitely won't have anything interfering with our ability to install on the outer slot. This overhang, I don't think it's really going to get in the way. But I'm kind of curious. So these little plastic caps that hold the M.2 drives in, I saw these on the QNAP NAS, which I wasn't a fan of there, and I am not a fan of here. I will take a screw over these caps any day of the week. Yeah, that's going to be a meme. Let's see. What is that? Wow, that is a long... So maybe that doesn't come all the way out. Once again, you know, I'm sure the documentation covers this, but I like to work as a field service technician. That is where I make my bones. And we don't really get that benefit. We have to sort of hit the ground running, trial by fire, that whole thing. So it doesn't really secure it down very well. That's a little disappointing. It's close enough for government work, but you know, this piece here is going to lock it down, but it's still a little sloppy. Yeah, so this piece doesn't get in the way. Obviously, it would be easier to not have to work around it, and if I had to do it again, I would have changed the order. Why make it harder than you have to? And it was just purely random that I just decided to put those brackets on. You know, I was so excited to discover that the brackets were there and what they were for. I couldn't wait to actually put them to use. So that's how we got off on that little tangent there. Still can't get over how long these screws are. I don't know why they made them this long. Definitely don't want to over tighten those. And I'll put this box with my stack of other S880 boxes. I don't know why I'm saving them. Kind of curious how many I'm using, I guess. Yikes. So that doesn't make me feel good at all. Wonder if I haven't installed this correctly. What I'm looking at is anytime you're adding a heatsink to an M.2 drive, it's important your M.2 drive is laying completely flat. Otherwise, as you tighten down your heatsink, it'll cause your M.2 drive. Sorry, I got the wrong camera feed up here. Let me switch this over. It'll cause your M.2 drive to bend. Now, look, a bent M.2 drive isn't the worst thing in the world, but it's not ideal. So if you look in there, you can tell the M.2 drive has a bow. It's bowing. And that suggests to me that I may not have it installed directly into these little plastic pieces here that lift up. Seem awfully cheap though. That's a pretty significant bow. I don't know. I think it'll be fine for now. but I might take it apart later. I wouldn't want it to sit like that for too long. After a while, it's going to remember that shape. And then the only way you're going to be able to straighten it out is to be placing it correctly, where it's completely flat, and then putting the heatsink on it with pressure to force it to straighten out and leave it like that for a long enough period of time that it resets its memory. But this is good enough for now. And then I'm going to grab the RAM off of here. We're going to use the same RAM since I'm not going to be using this board. And then I think I'll go ahead and strip the 6 M.2 drives I put in here because I don't think I'm going to be using this board for anything. The AD650i. I do need to reach back out to my contact at Minisforum. Oh, this is DDR4. Well, that was wishful thinking, Carey. This is a DDR5 motherboard, so that DDR4 RAM is not going to work, Carey. Well, luckily, it's like a Fry's Electronics store threw up in here. And I do have DDR5, so let me just go back here and take a quick look. I should have some DDR5 laptop memory somewhere here. What is this? 16 gigs times 2. You know what? That works for me. I'm good with that. Team group DDR5 4800 speed. See, I just marked it in here. This came out of something. Came out of something I upgraded. That'll be perfect for this build, I think. So weird that they're seating laptop memory as though it were desktop memory. I've never seen a laptop memory socket look like this before. Didn't even know it was possible. Who knew? Lots of firsts today. I could use this thermal take. Why not? I mean, I've got it sitting around. Fan's a fan, right? Sure, why not? Let's just go with that. Put that on here, like so. And then we'll use these really long screws right here. Those will go through, secure our fan. Again, it seems like these screws are a bit longer than they need to be, and I'm not sure why they did that. And what's frustrating is the head on these screws is really small. Oh, I know why. I know why. These fans have the option of having rubber pads. And the rubber pads aren't on here. And I suspect those rubber pads are going to lift that CPU, that case fan rather, up a little bit, which is going to require a bit more length on the screws then to reach. So let me just take a quick look. Here, what's this? Okay, so this is a 120 millimeter dusty Nacua fan that I had laying around. Let's see if that might make things a little happier, because it's got the little rubber pieces now that are going to give it a little bit more height. Oh, much better. I mean, it's ugly. I could change it out with an actual Chromax. That would be a black. But again, I'm probably going to change a lot on this. But for this live video, for just kind of making it up as we go, this will get the job done for now. I don't intend to keep it this way. That's all I'm saying. I just wish they didn't use such small Phillips heads on these screws, because these can get a bit tight, and that's very easy to strip them out, strip out the heads. All right, so that looks good there. And then we'll plug that in right here. Now, as far as this other stuff goes, let me just clear some space, and we'll grab my my standard testing power supply that you always see me use. And once again, we've got the documentation. That probably wouldn't kill us to take a look at it, but for right now, we're just going to keep marching forward without documentation, figuring things out on our own. Because to me, that is far more enjoyable, discovering things on my own than being told. But once I think I've got it all discovered, then it's a good idea to go back and look at documentation just to see if there's anything you missed or misunderstood. Do we have video output on this? We do. So this graphics card should have built-in, so our CPU should have built-in graphics. That's what I was trying to say. You can really see how those fans overlap what I was describing earlier. I'm going to need a power switch. So I'll grab this one here. And where's our power switch go? It's audio. This should be our front power switch right here. And then I need a keyboard and a mouse. Keyboard and mouse. There's the keyboard. Plug that into a USB 2 port. So yeah, there's our two USB 3s. There's our HDMI right down here. I'm noticing what appear to be mount points for screws. Does our IO shield screw on? That'd be kind of cool. I gotta say, it would explain why we have so many screws, and that would be a pretty cool feature, which again, should have been done at the factory if that's the case. Yeah, there's two small screws that go in over the display port and one over the HDMI that are going to lock this into position for us. So, I mean, that's good news, but bizarre that it wasn't done at the factory. A built-in IO shield that you have to build in yourself. Weird. Not terrible, just weird. And that explains why we have these two little tiny screws in this bag that I thought were M.2 screws, but clearly the M.2 drives, they're using those little plastic plug things instead of screws. So these are for the IO shield, and then that leaves us with 8 more screws, which I don't know what these are for now, because I think that utilizes everything at that point. So that's when the documentation, I'm sure, will clear up those muddy waters. Windows 11. Let's plug that in. I'm going to make an assumption that we're going to boot. What harm can come from assuming? I'm going to leave the network cable unplugged because it's our first boot. We want to do a clean install of Windows without requiring us to create a Microsoft account. Some power here. Turn that on. Okay, I want to make sure none of the cables are interfering with the rotation of the fans. We're going to go over to our HDMI input, which is right here. And then I'm going to take camera 1 and put it up in that corner over there. Okay, here we go. Fans are a-spinning. You guys don't get to see the fan spinning. There we go. And hopefully we'll get a power on self-test here. Be patient. Here we go. There's our Minisforum. Tell you what, let me turn off camera 1 so we get a full screen what's happening. So it is loading our Windows 11 installer. I'm going to go full screen so I can see it in the glamour and beauty that you guys get to watch at home. Next, install. Don't have a product key. Windows 11 Pro. I will be installing a Windows 10 Pro product key later for only $16. I can buy those and they work to activate Windows 11 Pro exactly the same way a Windows 11 Pro key works, only it's cheaper. Oh, this is a 2 terabyte, not a 4 terabyte. Yeah, it's fine. And we're off to the races. It is silent. I mean, for those 2 fans running, it's really quiet. Of course, that is an Noctua fan we put on there, so. Yeah. If the screen looks fuzzy at all to you, that means you are not watching in 1080. So hit the little gear icon and go to your resolution settings and choose 1080, as long as you have the bandwidth to carry that much data across your internet service, whatever you're paying for your internet service. You will notice the picture gets super sharp, crystal clear. Okay, so if it's ever not crystal clear and super sharp, it means your resolution's been. In case you're wondering why that happens. Rochester says, of course it's silent. Try converting a 4K file in Handbrake. Then it'll make noise. I don't think it's going to make much noise, even then. We can run Prime 95 on it and torture it. Okay, we're doing our first reboot. Arnold wants to know, Carey, do you recall the seller you recommended when buying the HP Elite ProBook from eBay? Tried a link you had in the video, however, it didn't work. Most of those sellers only have, they're temporary sellers. Like they have product, they put it on eBay, they sell it. And then they get some other product and they put that on eBay and they sell it. It wouldn't surprise me if those sellers that I bought the product from no longer have that product anymore and instead are now selling something else. I would just do a search for the 6500T mini PC from HP and then sort it by price plus shipping, lowest first, and see what's available to you. Pay close attention to whether or not you're getting a Wi-Fi Some of them come with Wi-Fi, some of them don't. Some of them come with mechanical drives. Some of them come with solid state drives. Some of them come with 4 gigs of RAM, some with 8 gigs of RAM, some with no RAM at all. Some don't include the power adapter. So the cheaper it is, the more concerned you've got to be about what you're not getting. It should be about $100 for 8 gigs of RAM, a 500 gig mechanical drive, the unit and the power supply. If it's anything more than $100, I would skip it. If you want to buy one of the ones that I have here that I've already upgraded, just reach out to me in an email. As long as you're in the United States, I can ship one to you and sell it to you at cost. States, yes. I think I have 20 of them. Okay. That finalizes our Windows 11 install. Then we can go to Windows Update. And we can run Prime 95. What else can we do? Crystal Disk Mark. I am kind of curious about getting a Gen 5 M.2 on there just to see the numbers. But, you know, even a 2 terabyte, like the Crucial, what is it, the M700? It's like $200. No, it's like $270, I think, for a 2 terabyte. And probably won't notice any actual difference in reality, but it's nice to see the numbers. So I am kind of curious just to verify that that is in fact running at Gen 5 speeds. But we'll start with Gen 4 and make sure we're running at Gen 4 speeds, because if we're not hitting close to 7,000, then we sure as heck shouldn't expect to be hitting 12,000 plus on Gen 5. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the Windows 11 flash drive out. Let's grab that. And we'll grab my Ethernet cable and plug that in. Kind of curious what Ethernet this has. Is it 2.5 gig? I expect it. I didn't look at the specs, but I would think with the specs that this machine has, I would expect a 2.5 gig Ethernet connection. Let's see, device manager. We are missing some drivers here, which I'm not quite sure where we're going to get those, but we'll take a look at that here in a minute. And let's see, network. It's a killer Wi-Fi adapter. Very cool. And yeah, 2.5 gig Realtek Ethernet controller. So I am curious. Let's turn this off here to search editions and history. Scroll down to that last setting, turn that, get rid of that. And maybe it'll get some of these drivers through Windows Update. I don't know. I'm not going to hold my breath. But we'll go ahead and turn this feature on. Come under here to advanced options. Turn this on, this on, this on. Oh, and there are driver updates here. So let's grab these driver updates. See if that takes care of what we needed. Okay, so that's obviously going to take a few minutes. So let's go back over to camera 1. And we'll just keep an eye on stuff here. Let me grab camera 1 and put it everywhere I put it, it's in the way. Let's put it over. All right, so while we're waiting for these updates to install, if you have any questions, comments, thoughts, put them in the live chat. We can talk to each other. This is YouTube. This is not television. You and I can talk to one another. And I strongly recommend you take advantage of that, because you can't do this on TV. Even if you could, the popularity of TV would make it impossible for you to be heard with so many people all shouting at once. So we have this benefit that we have this kind of hidden community that you've found and that you've decided to become a part of, that is quite literally your community. And I hope you do feel like you belong here. And I hope that you're not shy and speaking out, even if it's just to say hello. Let me check the phone real quick before I get into the chat room. $2 Amazon gift card from somebody named Rajek. Thank you, Rajek, for supporting the channel. Every little bit helps. And people that send something is what 90% of people don't do, is send anything at all. So, okay, so so Buster he took back the Apple gift card and sent the Amazon gift card. He goes, "The joke is on me." Oh man, I'll tell you what. It's a very generous Amazon gift card, Peter. Thank you, as always, for your continued support. Our friend Oystein, watching us from Norway, sends a $100 Amazon gift card. He says, "It's December already. Enjoy this gift card for your awesome and informative videos." Well, you guys, just between Oystein and Buster, holy cow, I'm going to need to go shopping. No, I don't. Not right now. I've got enough projects lined up. The reason why there were no videos on Wednesday or Thursday is I got myself all backed up in work. The holidays are very strange for me with my business. For the first 10 years, everybody told me how things got slow in their business during, from Black Friday through to the end of the holiday season. And it was not that way for me. Everything got super busy. And it may be because I have so many tax accountants that are customers that's traditionally when they want to do the upgrades to their office. They take care of that before the first of the year, so that when the first of the year comes around, they're good to go with the latest version of the tax software, whatever they use, as well as getting ready for the influx of clients that are going to come in, which gets busier and busier and quite manic when you get into April. These folks will generally work 12 to 16-hour days in the last 2 weeks of April. They often want backups done nightly because they're doing so much work, they don't want to lose a day of it. And I have found myself to be very, very busy from Thanksgiving through the New Year. And then it kind of went away. I'd say for 3 or 4 years, it got slow during the holidays. And I was like, oh, this must be what everybody was telling me about. And I was kind of bummed out because I was expecting, to be busy, and I wasn't, and I didn't have an alternate plan. This year, now in 2023, I'm back to busy again. It's kind of gone back to how it was. But that may be unique to 2023. I don't know. Having a client that came back to me after letting me go, and then presumably did nothing with their computer equipment for 5 years. And now it all needs work, and it is a ton of work. I probably got 30 hours into this one client's already. They're the ones that had the email problem. Anyway, I'm not complaining about it. It's good money. It's frustrating work because it shouldn't need to be done if they wouldn't have let me go to begin with. What's done is done, right? It is what it is. But nonetheless, it's a lot of work to untangle the neglect and the mess that's been left behind and ignored until it couldn't be ignored anymore. They waited until they could no longer ignore it, where it was now interfering with their ability to run their business. And now so much needs to be done. It's like, where do you start? So I'm just taking it nice and easy, one thing at a time. And 5 years of neglect is not going to be undone in a month. It's going to take a couple of months for me to You get the network straightened out, get the PCs straightened out. Plus, they have home PCs that they use to remote into. I need all that. They need a new remote solution. They're sick of TeamViewer. I got sick of TeamViewer a long time ago, so we got to get them a new alternative for that. For right now, for temporary purposes, they can use UltraViewer. It's very similar to TeamViewer in how it looks and how it works, but you can get it completely for free. It's not perfect. Instant House Call is great if you're looking for on-demand remote, like doing computer work. But for a remote solution, it's not ideal. So I'm still on the fence with which one I'm going to recommend for them. But right now, I've got them on UltraViewer to tide them over, just to get them away from TeamViewer. Again, there's a lot of things that need to be looked at. The NAS needs to be replaced. The data needs to be transferred off of the two old NASs in the cloud. They need, I just got their email fixed. They're going to need their email systems backed up. They don't have any backup of their email. So we were sort of hands tied when it came to staying with GoDaddy and suffering through this problem instead of just pulling up our roots and going to a competitor. We would lose all of their email because they didn't have anything backed up. So now that that's back up and running again, I don't really want to move it. Let's leave it alone. Don't fix it if it ain't broke. But if it happens again anytime soon, I want to be in a position where I can say, you know, tell GoDaddy exactly what I think and take my business somewhere else. But that never happened before in 15 years. So if it doesn't happen again for the next 15 years, then we'll just leave it as it is. But yeah, I've gotten very, very busy as a result of both the tax businesses and the this other company that's come back. And they just picked this time of year to come back, which is purely random, right? This could have happened 6 months ago. But for those reasons, it's been very busy for me. On top of that, a lot of businesses, like, you know, when I ship something, they all have reduced hours. And we're in this holiday time where business hours are kind of wonky, especially when we get around Christmas, Hanukkah, the New Year's Day, and then of course Thanksgiving Day, and then some businesses are closed throughout that weekend, right? That Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And others, they only close on Thursday and they're back up and running for Friday and the weekend. So it just kind of depends on the business. But that does throw my work a bit, it throws into a wrench, because if I order things from Amazon, usually it's an extra day or two I've got to wait to arrive. Not to mention that because of Black Friday and Cyber Monday, Amazon shipping has clearly been affected by it. I'm getting orders that were supposed to arrive, and I'm getting notices from Amazon that they're running late. 2 orders recently, they said I was supposed to get delivered the next day. And when the next day came, Amazon said, it'll be the 30th. It'll be like 4 days from now. Like, 4 days from now? That's not even close to next day. And then the next day it showed up at the door, even though the last update said it wasn't going to be for 4 days. So it looks like they're just so busy they don't know what's going on. In the meantime, I have to allow extra time for when I order things or for when I have to conduct business, depending on businesses being closed or having shorter hours. Like Christmas Eve, a lot of businesses close early, et cetera, et cetera. I don't normally think about stuff like this throughout the year. I just get what I want. I call during normal business hours, or, you know, when I'm trying to conduct business during normal business hours. It doesn't matter what day of the week it is. But this time of year, from Thanksgiving and throughout the first of the year, everything is kind of, I don't know. I get the feeling sometimes that I'm dealing with the employees that they're already on vacation. There's no sense of urgency. Now, this machine has gone to sleep on me twice, so I want to go ahead and set those power settings because it's driving me crazy. So let me just go over here real quick. Edit power plan. Turn off the display after 3 hours. Save changes. It looks like we've got one other update here, and then we can reboot. When we reboot, I can go ahead and run Crystal Disk Mark on this and see what sort of read numbers and write numbers we're getting. I expect full Gen 4 speeds. And then we can run Prime 95 just to see how loud it'll get and what sort of temperatures we're going to see. And I think that'll wrap up today's video. So we're going to go a little bit long, probably go 2.5 hours today. We're just about 2 hours into it. Victor Calendar with a £5 contribution says hello from London. I don't know how to say that. Is it Penge? Where it's -1 degree Celsius. Wow, a scorcher. That sounds a bit chilly. It looks like our friend Marco is joining us from Italy. Always good to see our friend Marco. Time for pizza. Marco says he's on Zoho as we speak. Zoho was recommended to me as the alternative. Take the business away from GoDaddy and take it to Zoho. But thankfully, I didn't need to do that. Have I heard of Rust Desk for remote solution? That's from Zvi Manor. I've never heard of Rust Desk. No, that's the first time I've heard of that name. There's a lot of remote solutions out there to choose from, though. Alhaj says here's a link for the motherboard drivers. Oh, right on. Good, good, good. Netfreak said I had to come back to say I forgot to mention my name and the $2 Amazon gift card. Oh, that's from Netfreak. All right. Thank you, Netfreak. David Graham says, what do you think of this board? I think it's kind of cool. It's really fast once you put in a Gen 5 M.2. Yeah, I don't know yet. I mean, until I run the tests and get over my hangups that I have on this bizarre fan situation, the way that the M.2 mounts, the fact that it's sitting bent, which I have to assume is my installation issue. I can't believe that that's supposed to bend like that. Nick Caffrey says, Carey, I'm going to do my first build. Should I wear rubber gloves or is it overkill? Well, you never want to wear rubber gloves or latex. What you want is nitrile. If you hold parts by the edges, you shouldn't be any concern anyway. Avoid touching the components. When you see me holding parts, pay attention to where my hands are holding the parts. I always hold the parts by their edges. Always, always, always. Look at any video going back 15 years. Pay attention to where my hands are. I've talked about this in videos exclusively where I mentioned the importance of handling the parts properly. If you're not very conscientious or mindful of what you're doing, certainly wouldn't hurt you to wear nitrile, powder-free, non-sterile gloves. Won't hurt anything to wear them. But if you handle the parts like you're supposed to, it's unnecessary. That's my opinion on that. Alhaj says, soon more motherboards will come. Oh, that's interesting. So this looks like more than just a detour from Minisforum's mini PCs. This looks like a whole nother venue of product line, which, you know, if they're more like this and not like this, I'm okay with it. Like the fact that this does not use a standard PC power supply defeats the whole point of it being a mini ITX standard. They might as well have made it even smaller. Why not? If you're not going to use a standard PC power supply or small form factor power supply, then you're not really using the ITX standard, because the ITX standard does require the use of a small form factor power supply or standard power supply, depending on what the case will allow. But it does never allow for an external laptop power supply. And of course, that limits your upgradability as well. So I just think that this just goes to show you, I'm honest. If I don't like a product, no matter how much I like the company and I like the people at Minisforum, I do not like this product, the AD650i. This product over here, I haven't decided yet, but I'm warming up to it. Some of the things that they're doing differently, I don't understand if that was truly necessary. However, that's my hang up. They're doing it differently. And I'm all for doing things differently if being different is better. But if we're doing something different just for the sake of being different, then I'm not a fan of that at all. All right, let's go ahead and start. So I'm looking at the link Alhaj has posted, and I see the BD770i, the AD650, then there's an AR900i, a BD790i, and an AR650i. So I wonder what the AR stands for. And those, the AR900, 790, and 650, all use the placement of a 120 millimeter fan. The only one that doesn't is this AD650i. What is the AR900? Oh, that's a 13900 HX processor, 24 cores, 32 threads. Ooh, 4 M.2 PCIe Gen 4 SSD. Wow. Wow. Sign me up. Launch date. When's the launch date? Doesn't say. Well, I'm going to drool over that one. The BD790, that's probably Ryzen, right? That's a Ryzen 9 7945, 16 cores, 32 threads. Hey, that's nothing to shake a stick at. And the AR650i is what? That's a 13650i7, 14 cores, 20 threads. Hey, not too shabby. 4 M.2 PCIe 4 Gen 4 slots. And this is the 770i, right? And this has, where this is unique is it's the only one that I see that has Gen 5 M.2s. So instead of having 4 M.2 slots, it only has 2 M.2 slots. All those other ones I was just reading about had 4 Gen 4 slots. Fascinating. Well, thank you for the link. We'll have to add that link to the video notes after the show. It's good to know what's coming. See if I can. Let's turn this off for a second. Let me go. Trying to do two things at the same time here. So we're going to go back to Windows Update since that's going to take a minute. And then I'm going to take a quick look in the device manager to see if any of those driver updates. Oh, yeah, they all filled in perfectly. So we're not missing any drivers anymore. That's good to know that we can pull them all from Windows Update on Windows 11. that we don't need to go to Minisforum, download the drivers from them. We probably do want to download the AMD Adrenalin driver, however. In order to get the best performance out of any AMD system, you're going to want that. So, okay, well, good. And then let me grab my utilities flash drive and get that plugged in, and we'll copy over Crystal Disk Mark, Prime 95, CPU-Z, Uncle Carey's Windows 10 optimizer, you know, the standard routine. Let's go here, here. Disk Mark, Prime 90. Throw VLC on here. Okay, so I think this. All right, we'll let that run. Take a quick look. It's the one I want. Okay, we're going to keep an eye on this stuff here. And Prime 95. That running. That's installing at the same time. We'll keep an eye on the clock down here in the bottom. It shows this has been running for almost a minute. We know that that was probably about 30 seconds in before we got started. But this is, that was scaring me. That one I'm not. Already in the mid 70s. We're going to keep an eye on this maximum side of things here. I'd like to keep this below 90 because it's a smaller form factor. Instead of stopping at the normal 85, I'd say 90 is about where I would be comfortable, or I would start to become uncomfortable once we hit 91, because at that point, we don't have much ceiling left for any much higher temperatures. So we'll see how this performs, and we'll keep an eye on it. And let me check, see if I've missed anything on the phone. Nope, all caught up there. Then back over to the chat room. Uh-oh, what are these numbers in red? That is not good. I have to walk up closer to the screen because the font is too small. Let's see. Yeah, that is, I'm looking at the individual cores, and so far the cores are okay. but the die, the package is reading much higher for some reason, which I don't quite understand. Oh, yeah, okay. So Core 7 did hit 90.9. That's a little scary. Now, the system's dead quiet. We might need a more aggressive fan on there. Yeah, I can see this is not ideal because this test has only been running a couple minutes and we're already sweating here at what, 3 minutes into the test. We're already hitting temperatures that are a bit concerning. I'm going to let it keep running. We'll see what it does. In fact, you know what? Well, that's running. Close this. Minimize that. Let's bring up Crystal Disk Mark and run it. We could multitask. Let's work the heck out of it. But it's dead quiet. Wow. I haven't seen numbers that high out of one of these Beijing drives ever. I am happy with that. Holy cow, the number just keeps going up. Holy cow. Yes, please, thank you. We'll go ahead and run the full bank of tests and we'll keep an eye on Prime 95 while that's running as well. And we'll see if this thing will blue screen, you know, if it reaches a temperature so hot that it crashes, or if it throttles like it's supposed to and is able to maintain. They're obviously, Minisforum is not using the liquid metal here. So yeah, 91 still looks like our peak. So we're good right now. We're in the 80s right now. So yeah, interesting, very interesting. Great numbers. I'm just looking through the chat room here and looking through some of the conversations, and our write speed there is 6,500. I want to say that I have not seen write speeds that fast on this drive, or read speeds that fast. So that's interesting to me that it's not the drive, but the chipset that I'm plugging it into that's causing those slower speeds, because this is a Gen 5 chipset. And clearly it can go twice as fast as what we're seeing. It has the potential of going 15,000 megabytes per second as soon as they develop the technology for that. Right now, about the maximum we're hitting is 12 and a half. But by this time next year, 15 will be the normal. I suspect our temperatures are greatly affected by the fan we're using. I think Noctua, on these brown fans, they're made to be quiet, so they don't spin as high in RPM. Noctua does make some fans that are quite loud. The industrial fans, stay away from those. But that would likely make a massive impact on the cooling performance. But this isn't terrible. Like, it's worrisome, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm looking at these temps. How are we doing right now? 86. They're not terrible. We're going 9 minutes on this. So we still have another 11 minutes to go. So there's plenty of opportunity for this to overheat. We'll see what it does. We're going to watch the performance here. And, you know, if this is as bad as it gets, it's perfectly fine the way it is. I would still change the fan out to something that's all black. I don't like the Noctua colors are just terrible. Why anybody would purposely color their fans that shade of brown, I don't know. Maybe they're colorblind. I don't know what was appealing about that. That is a terrible color. But with everything else on the board being black, it just to match everything. Look, if everything else on the board was brown, I'd be fine. But since literally nothing is that color, you know, it was a bold move for Noctua to pick such an ugly color and to know that it was less likely that anybody would ever choose that color because it was so ugly that they would have a unique branding color. They didn't have to worry about competitors. It also means their fans don't match anything. But they do have the Chromax fans that are all black. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close this out, and we're still keeping an eye on what's going on here. Let's take a look at the chat room and see what you guys are talking about. Bikeman says, in the future, if I decide to upgrade to an Intel 13500, will my gaming performance suffer? I've always used Intel i7 processors. Well, today's i5 is as fast as yesterday's i7. And nothing's going to make you a better gamer based on what CPU you're using. Your skills as a gamer will be definitively what determines your gaming experience based on your gaming skill level. So don't think that you're replacing gaming skill by just buying a faster processor. Some games are more processor resource intensive, and other games more video card or more RAM intensive. So it depends on the game. It depends on the resolution of the game. But at the end of the day, none of that should really matter. If you're skilled at playing the game, then it shouldn't matter what CPU you're using, you know, within reason. There are certain things that you're just going to need to have experience with on your own, because the games that you play are probably different from the games other people play, or the combination, the variation thereof, the resolution you play at, and what your eyes find appealing are going to be unique to you. So you're going to have that experience and then come back and share with us if you know, can't tell a difference, or if you should have bought the i7. You'll have to tell us. And that likely won't affect anybody else's opinions. It won't be helpful to know what your preferences are, except as it applies to you. So it's more of a matter of curiosity. And then you can sort of gauge a consensus of what most people are saying, but that still doesn't necessarily apply to any individual. but we look at statistics and we look at averages, and that's about the best we can do. And at the end of the day, as I mentioned, today's i5s are faster than yesterday's i7s. So really depends on what the game requires. Van Laird wants to know if the CPU is throttling. It probably throttled when it hit temperatures in red, but it's not running those temps right now. Right now, it's in the 80-degree range. If we look at the numbers on the far left, that's the current temp. The next row over is the minimum, the coolest it's been. The coolest temperature's been sensed since we started the software up. And in the right side is the maximum. And that's the maximum temp recorded since we started the software. And then the far right is the average temp, where it's, over time, what its average temp is. I'm not too worried about the average temp because this is not an average task. So the max we're seeing on any of the cores is still 91. I don't know why the die is reporting a 2-degree Celsius temperature difference there. But I am not worried about it. If it is throttling, then it is doing what it's supposed to do. And again, a more aggressive fan would certainly make a difference on this. This Noctua fan is known for being quiet, not for moving a lot of air. So overall, I'm okay with this. Like, obviously I haven't stopped the test. I'm not worried about anything being damaged or any long-term concerns. This is all normal standard operating procedure. So unless the machine blue screens or shuts down, there's really not a problem here. It's unlikely that we're going to push the machine on our day-to-day tasks where this temperature would be an issue. Unless, yeah, maybe you're somebody who's using Handbrake to convert videos all day long from 4K. But I have to imagine that you're eventually going to run out of videos. So even that's probably just temporary. But that's for you to decide. There's no reason it wouldn't be decoding in Handbrake just fine, or encoding, either way. At these temperatures, it's still within its operational range. It's not exceeded that range. It is not. It's certainly something to be aware of, but nothing we need to be worried about in the sense that, oh, we need to fix it. Like, it's fine the way it is unless it's getting worse. If this is as bad as it gets, that's fine. Because it won't do this very often. This is just when you're running some heavy resource task that's going to take a while. And Handbrake would be a good example of a real practical, real world example of something that would cause a machine to work under a heavy load for a prolonged period of time. Although even then, with a modern processor, I wouldn't imagine it would take that long, versus using older CPUs that would have to work harder to achieve the same amount of output. El Hedge says he's going to wait for the AR900i. That 13900X looks good. Yeah, maybe the folks at Minisforum will send us one. Marcus wants to know if it can get hotter because it's sitting on the cardboard. No, all of the heat's coming from the top. So That is very, very quiet. I will give it that. I mean, the price you're going to pay if you're fixated on these temperatures being a problem, and I'm telling you that's not a problem, but if you're convinced it is, then you can give up the sweet, sweet peace and quiet of a quiet fan, because you could easily solve this with a louder, more aggressive fan. I have no doubt we can make a significant difference in the cooling. This one's probably one of the worst fans we can use as far as how much air it's moving. It's also ugly, but you know, for just grabbing something that I wasn't really prepared for during a live show, it's adequate. And that's the best way I would explain it. The temperatures here are nothing to be concerned about. They're running within normal operational range, but just barely. And again, only under a heavy load. When we're normally using the computer, browsing the web, checking email, probably 90+% of the time you spend on your computer, it's mostly just idling in most cases. You know, you're writing a book, Excel spreadsheet, watching YouTube videos. It doesn't take much. And these processors are so powerful. We've got plenty of RAM in here. It's light work, and temperatures aren't going to be an issue. If, on the other hand, you're trying to build a machine or rendering handbrake 4K videos, probably wouldn't want to do it on a mini ITX build. Like for me personally, I would want more of a traditional tower where I could use an all-in-one cooler and I could put in a full-size graphics card, et cetera, et cetera. I wouldn't want the limitations of a mini ITX build for doing that, right? It's sort of like I wouldn't want a smart car and go pick up lumber at Home Depot. A pickup truck is a better tool for that job, or even a minivan, even an SUV. You know, a little Mazda Miata, and you're going to be leaving Home Depot. You just bought yourself a 10-foot ladder, 12-foot ladder. Yeah, good luck getting that home. So just because you can do something doesn't mean it's real smart for you to try and do it. There are better tools designed to handle certain tasks. And so if you're trying to force something to work in a way it was never intended, then it wouldn't be difficult to find fault with it. But I would say the fault is with the user having unrealistic expectations that aren't fair to take advantage and exploit the design benefit that is lost on them, right? So the mini ITX builds are really there to be sort of as much power as we can reasonably get in a very small container. Now, obviously, there are many PCs where all this work is done for you, and you could go external on your GPU if you wanted to do that. This is just another alternative for you to consider if you want more control over the components that are making up your computer, right? Because the mini PCs, for the most part, you can get them as bare bones units. Let's see, let me move this over. And that way you can control your RAM, your storage, your operating system. But in this way, we can have a bit of a larger PC. It's not going to be as small as a mini PC, but it will be much smaller than a traditional tower or mid-tower, and still give us a lot of the same benefits as far as being able to put in a GPU. Often limits there. And again, depending on the case you're using is going to be a big factor in that. Spending as much on your GPU or twice as much than your computer cost, to me, doesn't make any sense. That's the stuff of childishness. Like, I don't know. It's so impractical and silly. I just can't imagine anybody that works hard for a living would justify dropping $2,000 on a GPU and $1,000 on the computer they're putting it in just so they can play video games. Like most people I know that earn that kind of money don't have that kind of time to play video games. And the people that I primarily see dreaming of that are children. They're high school kids that obviously they're not making that kind of money. They'd have to work a very long time and save their money. It's likely being provided to them by their parents. So they're like, yeah, Mom and dad, I want this and I want that. And then they can stay at home all day and play video games. And that's great. You're a kid. All the power to you. But it can be very difficult, especially the older we get and we take on more responsibilities, to justify having that extra cash burning a hole in your pocket strictly just for a GPU. And if you were going to do that, it doesn't make sense to me that you'd want to put it in a small package. It would likely be much more appropriate and probably more affordable and a lot easier to work on and a lot more expandable to go with a mid tower or full-size tower. But that's just me. Now, there are companies out there and people that do architecture and things of that nature that do need these high-end machines. Anthony Remus over at Remus Computer Solutions customizes builds that routinely are, $10,000, I would guess, is the average price of the builds he does. And they're already overclocked and they're designed for architectural firms that are doing some pretty intense rendering projects, and they need a very high level of performance and a very high level of they need to be very efficient in their output so they can get more work done, so they can charge their customers more often. And, he's carved himself out a nice little niche there. Niche? He's carved himself out a nice little vertical where he's very well known in those industries. And through that word of mouth, he's able to keep himself very busy. In my world, I've sold 2 $10,000 computers in my entire career. It's clearly no way for me to earn a buck. It's very difficult to find customers that are willing to drop that much coin for a machine they're likely only going to have 4 or 5 years. But there are industries where that's nothing. Hollywood will drop $15,000, $20,000 on a computer and not even consider it, anything other than petty cash. But I'm not involved in those industries, and it's few and far between. Most of the customers I get are just average, everyday folks, and they dream about what they want, and then this is what they can afford. And that's ultimately, at the end of the day, what we deal with is there's the dreaming. It's all well and good to drool over the latest video card and imagine what your frames per second would be. And then there's the practicality, the reality of what is it you're really going to benefit from. And at the end of the day, that's usually an $800 computer for most people. And even those $800 computers, you can slap a graphics card in there and turn it into a gaming machine. But again, when the graphics card's $2,000 and the whole computer was $800, most people in my world would think you're joking. But if you're going to find people like that, you're going to find them here on YouTube, because this is where the enthusiasts are. And so it may give you the impression that that's what everybody's doing, but everybody is primarily enthusiasts. And this is where they're all coming. So you're getting primarily the enthusiast mindset. And if you're not an enthusiast, if you're somebody who's perhaps enthusiastic, but not to that level where you're dropping all kinds of money on the latest and greatest stuff all the time. You'd like to, don't get me wrong, but it's just not an option for you. You might feel like you're the only one who's being practical, but it's just because the crowd that this attracts tends to be the enthusiast crowd. But the enthusiast crowd doesn't make up the majority of sales for computers or computer equipment. They might for, again, niche manufacturers. But companies like Dell and HP are selling plain black boxes with no case windows and no RGB, and they sell them by the thousands every day. Every day there's probably, just between Dell and HP alone, and the amount that corporate America buys, they probably, I want to guess, worldwide, they probably sell it's got to be several thousand PCs every day, 7 days a week, nonstop, 365 days a year. I don't know exactly how many thousands, but it comes out, like if you look at the sales numbers, it comes out to into the millions in a year of sales. So you divide that by months or divide it by days to determine how many they're making per day or selling per day. It's a crazy number. Then you compare that with, how many enthusiasts, how many people built their own computers. It's a teeny tiny little number. That little number might be enough to keep a small business in business if they specialize in just selling enthusiast level equipment. But it's a fraction of what the industry makes. It's a tiny little nothing. So I don't put too much into the enthusiast market because it's too fickle and it's too much support required with regards to dealing with a lot of the latest technology that's the most expensive, the hardest to get a hold of because all the enthusiasts all want it. And then on top of that, it tends to be a little buggy because it's brand new, and then it leads to more support calls and it's less profitable. So as a business owner, I'm all about being practical and selling rigs that are going to be reliable, affordable, and last a long time and as much as possible trouble-free, because support calls cost me money. And if I get too many support calls, I won't be able to run my business anymore. I cannot simultaneously help somebody for free while at the same time working on a new system build to sell. I have to do one or the other. And if the support side of things starts taking up more of my time than the sales side of things, then the whole thing flips upside down and capsizes. So that's why if I sound old about the whole gaming thing, it's just, for me, it's too difficult to make money at that. It's more of like, if you're at home and you want to do it yourself kind of thing, you're going to be your own support. You're going to design your own computer. But again, that doesn't make up the percentage-wise of computer owners that do that. It's a very small little sliver. Mitch Morrison joins us in the chat room. Good to see you, Mitch. Jim KJ3N says, for the price of a single 4090 graphics card, I can build 4 office computers. Complete. This is true. Gaming is a very expensive luxury for people that have time and money. And all the power to them if they have them. And if that was the average customer, I'd be very happy. I'd be a very happy business owner. Oh, I haven't been paying attention to this. Let me see, how am I doing on my temps? This has been running far longer than I intended it to. Which is good, right? That just means our test is that much more thorough. We're on over a half an hour right now. And Core 3 is at 89.4. Core 7's at 89.6. It's a little warm. A little warm. But the highest temp we got was 92.9. So, you know what? Again, we're right on the edge. Right on the edge. But as soon as I turn the test off, as soon as I turn off Prime 95, we should see those temperatures get cut in half. Yeah, watch these temps now. So I think that's going to wrap it up. Yeah, I would change that fan primarily because I don't like the color. I would change it to an all black fan. I want to reseat that M.2 drive. I want to figure out why it's warping like that, but I'm very happy with how fast it's performing. Maybe I'll go ahead and order like a 2 terabyte Gen 5 T700 just to put a Gen 5 in there and see how it performs. Kind of curious now if Gen 4 performs that well. Seeing 12,500 or something like that coming out of the Gen 5 should be impressive. The reality is it's probably not going to make much difference in any load times. It's mostly just number chasing. And I can't really get behind that. I think it's fine if you have that kind of expendable cash that you can chase numbers. But if you really wanted to be practical, I'd rather see you get more storage. You know, instead of getting a 2 terabyte Gen 5, get the 4 terabyte Gen 4. Get that Samsung 990 4 terabyte drive. It's a great drive. And I think you'll get much more usage out of double the capacity than you will out of double the speed. In fact, that's not even double the speed. And apart from looking at it with numbers, you're really not likely going to notice it unless you do something very specific that has high I/O. But that would be pretty unusual and would be unique to your individual use case, which is fine. But for most people watching, it wouldn't impact them whatsoever. Just much better off, in my opinion, having more storage than having faster speed. Nick Caffrey says, thanks, Carey. Very helpful build and commentary as always. Richard Palmentier says, thanks for the prep on the mini ITX motherboard. Yeah, we'll definitely be bringing this one back again. I think I will go ahead and build it in the Radeon Tech, the little mini ITX system. And maybe even use that 4060 graphics card in there and just build a nice little killer rig out of it once I change that cooler out and figure out why the card's not sitting straight, and maybe swap the card out for Gen 5 just because I can. That would be a really good system, I think. Certainly for 1080 gaming, and it would be lightweight, portable, quiet, and affordable. So if you're considering buying a new PC, you have some thoughts to consider with regards to if you want to do a mini ITX system utilizing a laptop CPU, or if you just want to do mini PC, or if you want to build a traditional machine. I think these traditional machines are going to go away. I think with the way things are moving in this direction, and with home users, doing a lot of things on their phone or their tablets, they don't need computers at residences as much. People that remote work and things like that, obviously, but your average family is stepping away from having computers outside of the kids wanting them for gaming. The adults really don't need them as much. They can do almost everything they need to do. In fact, they can do everything they need to do on their phones. So why buy the computer and deal with that nonsense? And I think this is a trend we're going to see continuing on. And I think we look about 8 years from now, if we go to the year 2030, let's just say 7 years from now, 6 years from now, there's going to be a significant reduction in the amount of build videos you're going to see on YouTube, because people aren't going to be clicking and they're not going to get many views. And it's going to be a very select group of people that are interested, just like ham radio. There's still people out there interested in ham radio stuff, but probably didn't know that until I told you. So unless you're one of the few that knows about it, you know what I mean? Like, it's become a specialized little group. And I think that's where this is moving to, especially with the advent of AI and how that's going to change the way processors function and how speeds are perceived. A package this big isn't going to necessarily be required. I'm looking in my crystal ball, which has never been accurate, so keep that in mind. I may have no clue what I'm talking about. But I am getting the sense that interest in PCs, building your own PC, is waning. If you just look at the view numbers on any PC build video, they're not like they used to be. Now, whether this is a fad that will just come through the other side, we're weathering a storm, or whether this is a sign of what's coming. I think it's a sign of what's coming. And I can't debate that it's time. Like at this point now, we're not getting a whole lot of innovation on this side of things. All the innovations coming from the smaller computers, which are much more affordable, much cheaper to ship, much easier to move around. Sure, they're not as upgradable, they're not as repairable, but they're more reliable now than ever before. So the idea of needing a repair, well, it still happens from time to time. It ain't like it used to be. The number of repair calls I get these days is very small compared to the number of repair calls I used to get, which just goes to show that they're making the products, power supplies, storage, everything's getting faster, cheaper, smaller, and more reliable, far more reliable. Just need to look at the history of the service calls and see what we were doing 10 years ago in a month, what kind of repairs we were doing, and what kind of repairs we do today. Power supplies used to be changed out fairly regularly. Mechanical hard drives would be changed out multiple times a month. We would have hard drive failures. These days, they're few and far between. Power supply failures once a year, maybe. Hard drive failures, maybe once a year, maybe, if that, maybe once every 2 years. So it's changing. And to stay in business, you have to pivot and change with the business, or you go out of business. You go, you know what? I think it's time to retire. So we'll see which one of those happens first. But yeah, I don't think it's going to happen tomorrow or anything. But I do think if you pay attention to the amount of attention, if you pay attention to the amount of attention that build videos are getting compared to what they used to get, say 3 years ago, 2 years ago, there's certainly been a decline in viewership. So that's interesting. And the question is, you know, is this temporary? Is there going to be a resurgence? I don't think so. I think this is just a natural progression. And I think that these mini PCs continue to make more and more of an argument for moving away from the bigger stuff that's bulky. It's certainly more power hungry. It's not as environmentally friendly. So I see a lot of benefit to going to both a system you would build yourself as a mini ITX, or even having systems that'll be full mini PCs that you'll be able to customize. We're ramping up. Watch, it's coming. Martin mentions with the temps, might want to check the fan curve in the BIOS. It could be set to silent mode. That's very true, given that the fan didn't seem to speed up. It may be set to silent mode. That in and of itself could help our temps. However, I don't intend to keep that fan on. It's just too ugly. You know, as far as the performance goes, it's good enough the way it is. I think you're trying to fix something. It doesn't need to be fixed. People seem to be fixated that there's a problem when there isn't a problem. And there's nothing I can say that's going to convince them. Like, you can see the machine's running perfectly fine. It has no problems, no crashes. It's fast, it's quiet. And yet some of you watching are so fixated with those temperature numbers that as far as you're concerned, it needs to be fixed. And yet any regular computer user would never be looking at those numbers. That's something an enthusiast does. And you're poisoning yourself. It's toxic to be looking at numbers that have no impact on the operation of the machine. I don't think it's healthy. It's certainly not good for the wallet. Certainly companies would love to sell you unnecessary products to bring your temperatures down unnecessarily because you're so convinced it's bad. I'm telling you, there's nothing wrong with that. It's fine. It's at the edge, but you know, there's always an edge somewhere. And we're nowhere near that temperature right now. As you can see, under normal usage, we're not even getting close. So I think this fixation is not healthy. And I also think it's sending a wrong message to other people that are wannabe enthusiasts or they want to learn more about the tech. It might be poisoning their mind with toxic information that doesn't really matter. And then it's like a contagious disease that then they start worrying about things that don't matter. They start spending their hard-earned money on things they don't need. So they can see numbers that are lower that have no impact on the performance, the sound. You know, we're not trying to remedy a noisy fan. We're not trying, there's nothing here to fix but the digits that displayed on the screen. And they're causing this anxiety and the disruption. I don't know. I just think the problem is with the people. It's not with the computer. The computer's fine. Just leave it. If you actually have a problem, like if you're getting blue screens or crashes, then yeah, we need to solve that. But where it's at now, there's no blue screens, there's no crashes, there's no reason that this needs any repair whatsoever. It's fine just the way it is. Could it be better? Could we pursue getting cooler temperatures when it's under a maximum load? Yes, we could. If you want to spend your time and money chasing numbers for something that has no practical difference in how you use the machine, you do you. But I certainly couldn't run a business that way. I would not be able to sleep at night if I was trying to convince a customer that they should pay me money to do work to a computer because I didn't like the numbers I was seeing when the customer has no complaints. That doesn't make any sense. Unless there's something dangerous and I can, you know, see that this is getting worse and I want to take care of it before it gets worse. But this is standard operating procedure. It's running within the parameters it was designed to run. And there's no reason it needs to run any cooler than that. Now, if it does run hotter and we end up getting a blue screen or the machine shuts down, then obviously we need to put a better cooling solution in. But just looking at numbers, we don't even know how accurate those numbers are. So you're believing them to be accurate. And I don't know, I just think maybe you got too much money burning a hole in your pocket if that's the kind of thing you're worried about. But I can tell you, consumers don't know how hot their temperatures are with CPU and stuff. They don't look at that and they don't care. And as long as the computer's not crashing, why would they? Why would a regular, ordinary person go looking at information that is completely irrelevant, that has no impact on anything, unless you're trying to solve a problem? And as you can see, the machine's running 100%. There's no problem to solve. So sorry, I can't get behind that train. You have at it. But for everybody else watching, I want you to pay attention to some of this enthusiast mindset. And, you know, if you want to think that way, have at it. There's plenty of channels that condone and encourage that type of needless spending and anxiety. I'm trying to keep it real here, trying to keep it practical. When you've got an office with 300 computers, we're not going to go through 300 computers and change thermal compound out. You know what I mean? That's going to be very costly. What somebody does at their home is often very impractical and not necessarily an example for anybody else to follow. So at the end of the day, I got to consider, how do I run a business? Enthusiasts don't have to worry about that. I think that's going to wrap it up for today. Elijah Dickens says, I love that ITX carry. Oh, wait till you see it built. Wait till we put it in a case with that video card. And we'll put that Gen 5 NVMe in there just because we can. Just as an example of what's possible. A thank you again to Rajek and our friend Buster. Buster with a very generous Amazon gift card. Our friend Oystein in Norway, a very generous Amazon gift card. Thank you to Dan Nilsson, who sent $10 via PayPal, and Mark Gaines, who sent a $25 Amazon gift card. David Everett, who sent a $25 Amazon gift card. And Cowboy Rowdy with a $50 Amazon gift card. You guys rock. Thank you so much. And a thank you as well for all those super chats. I want to shout out everybody one more time. Let me go back to full screen on camera 1. And here's my viewer activity. Victor Collender Thank you for your £5 contribution. Steve Multiversos with a €2 contribution in Super Chat. Thank you. Nick Caffrey with a €20 Super Chat. Thank you so much, Nick, as well as your kind words earlier. Appreciate that. Captain Blinsky, thank you for your Super Chat, as well as Cowboy Rowdy and Paul O'Brien. Peter VZ, Andy Kane renewed his membership, now a member for 4 months. Right on. Thank you, Andy. Roy Starman and Tom K, thank you for your super chats. Our friend Buster with his super chat. 3D Everything and Alan Lindos. David Graham and Ben Laird. Planet Cryos and Twin Turbo Toyota. Mark Gaines and Planet Cryos. LRCX renewed membership, now a member for 6 months. And Mike Dane Jr., renewed membership, now a member for 10 months. Planet Cryos again with another super chat. And Cowboy Rowdy with another super chat. Dustin Fuller renews membership, now a member for 18 months. Our friend Frankie B with a super chat and a very generous Amazon gift card the other day. Thank you as always to our good friend Frankie B. And Ben Laird and Paul O'Brien with their super chats. And there was one other one here that I missed that was a membership renewal. So Cowboy Rowdy is now a member for 16 months. Is that the one I missed? I hope I got everybody. Thanks again for your contributions and your memberships that help keep me free of commercialization. There was nothing these companies would like better than for me to sell my audience to them, for them to tell me what I can say or what I'm not allowed to say about their product, which product they want me to talk about, whether or not it's something I'm interested in doesn't matter, because they're writing a check. And in exchange for that check, I'm agreeing to say what they want me to say, to show what they want me to show, and to publish it first by not showing it to you guys until they see it first. And then they have to give it a thumbs up, or I have to make any required changes. That all has to be done by a deadline, or I don't get paid. So they just dangle this check like it's a carrot. With you guys supporting me the way that you do, I'm able to make videos that I'm genuinely interested in and work with companies I want to work with. So I'm always delighted when I receive something new from the folks at Minisforum or B-Link or even Paladin and some of the other mini PC makers, as well as from Synology and other NAS makers like TerraMaster. These are products I'm genuinely interested in, and I'm genuinely considering offering to my clients to solve any computer problems or frustrations they have at their offices. So it's the best of both worlds, because for the products that, or rather the companies that don't work with us, and there's plenty that don't work with us, if they don't have control, then they don't want to deal with us. So we just go and buy their product and then we review it anyway. So it's not like they can stop us. And we're not buying product with the intention of, slamming it. I don't want to waste my time or my money. I only buy product I'm genuinely interested in and that I would consider for use in solving, getting resolutions to my clients to whatever they're trying to resolve in their office or their home computers. And so with that, it's a nice combination between the handful of companies that we work with, like Minisforum, who send us product free of charge in exchange for a review, but they don't get any say of what I say or when I publish. I've got a couple mini PCs coming up from GeekCom next week that I'm excited to show you. because the folks at GeekCom have been wonderful to work with as well. And the folks at Be Quiet are always wonderful to work with. And we certainly appreciate their cooperation and supporting us. You know, if you see anything from NZXT or Corsair on this channel, I'm buying that. They don't work with us. That's okay. They don't have to. Still like NZXT cases. I would love to be able to promote them and earn money, you know, a commission. But if, whatever reason, we can't see eye to eye in the way I do things, maybe they don't like my loose style, but we're going to do it anyway. We'll just buy the product and evaluate it. Best of both worlds. So it's with your contributions and your memberships that makes this possible. And I can't thank you enough for it. Welcome into December. We're just getting started. The last month of the year here. Got a number of videos lined up for you. And we'll see how many of them I'll get done between now and the end of the year, because all these other projects I've got going on in the real world is requiring a little bit of it's a challenge to balance my time, but I am always live every Friday at 1 o'clock Phoenix time, always. That's 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. And for members, for the people that pay $9.99 a month to support this channel, I do members only videos every Monday at 1 o'clock Phoenix time. Again, 12 p.m. Eastern. I'm sorry, 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. Those are members only videos, only available to members. They'll always only be available to members. If you just became a member, you can go back and watch all the previous members only videos. If I do a show on Friday and I do a show on Monday, those are guaranteed, then that's really only leaving me Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays. And Wednesdays, I usually run errands, grocery shopping, if I have a dentist appointment, et cetera, I usually schedule that for Wednesdays. That's why most of the time I don't do a show on Wednesdays. And then that just leaves Tuesdays and Thursdays. So if I'm going to do a public show, it makes sense for me to do it on a Tuesday. And then with Wednesday being errands, and then Thursdays lately have been with my real clients, you know, here in town. That's pretty much stretched me out. You know, that's all the time I've got. But sometimes weekends become available. That's possible. Then, of course, I will do a show as time permits any day of the week. So be sure you subscribe to the channel and turn your notifications on. In general, most of the time, if I'm going to do a live show, it will start at 1 o'clock Phoenix time. There are days where sometimes I start later or start earlier, but it's pretty rare. So you can always just stop by the channel after 1 o'clock Phoenix time just to see if I'm live. But it's a lot easier to just turn notifications on and be alerted. So as we approach the holidays, with everything being as busy as it is, just trying to explain what that schedule is. And then after the first of the year, I imagine things will go back to how it was, where I'll have a bit more time that I can focus on more videos. Because I really enjoy doing them. If I can make a video every day of the week, Monday through Friday, I'm a happy camper. Just take the weekends off. But, and I was doing that for a while. And I think, and I hope I will go back to that in January. But thank you guys for making it possible. And thank you for being a part of this amazing community. Thank you, of course, to Mara for doing the thumbnail and setting up today's video with all the video notes and tags and keywords that are in the video notes. And to all of my members, all of my friends in blue, and just everybody who hangs out with us. Thank you for hanging out and being a part of this incredible community. I'll see you all again very, very soon. Until next time, bye for now.